doing?
Hey, very good. How are you?
Oh, amazing. Truly amazing. Yeah, let's wait for some people to join. We have a lot of things to talk about. Let me see if I retweeted the space. Okay.
How was your day so far?
Very intense. A lot of things happened today, a lot of activity, which is great.
Nice.
Yeah. Um, Other than that, no, everything is fine. We had some holidays here in Israel, but they finally ended, so we're back to normal.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, it's always, strange. Things happen out there, in the world while we're here doing other things. Life is what happens when you're outside when you're working on Beam.
True.
Uh,
Very.
yeah, so let's start with the list of topics that we're going to talk about today. It's quite a long list, and we also have a lot of questions to answer. I see the recording is on, so it's good, which means that people will also be able to listen to this later. Um, yeah, so let's start with the key kind of events of the last few days. First of all, the Beam Desktop Wallet 7.3 was finally released. And as you know, it includes support for the hardware wallet. It includes a lot of improvements for the high frequency transactions, which we're going to talk a lot about today for many reasons. It also includes the first version of the Messenger. It's very basic, it's very primitive and not very good looking, but it's a start, and we are going to improve it going forward. So that's kind of uh, the 7.3, and the 7.3 release was a very important kind of infrastructure that opened the way to all of the applications that are going to use the high frequency transactions. And the first application that is really using those transactions has actually launched today, and it's called Befrit. You probably heard about it. It's a stable coin built on top of Beam, and we're going to talk a lot about this application as well for many reasons. Did you see it already?
I did. I downloaded the latest wallet on my desktop and I opened Trove and I just got the laptop up to speed as well, so I haven't played around on it there yet, but I have on the desktop computer.
Yeah. So it's really like an important application for many reasons. First of all, it's like one of the cornerstone DeFi components, for any ecosystem to have a stable coin. And so, now we have one on Beam as well. It's very important. But also, from the technical perspective, as I said, it uses the high frequency transactions, the first app to actually do so. And it was also released using our decentralized application store, which is great. I think the first live app to use this store for actual deployment. Um, it uses IPFS for hosting. It uses the contract for the publisher registration, and it's a great way to publish applications in both decentralized and confidential way. So it's nice to see this feature also getting used here. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the other topic. Also, we have some updates about first of all the faucet. The faucet is live on mainnet again. Last time it was robbed very quickly. Somebody just created a lot of wallets and just took all of the kind of small amount of beam that was deposited there. We have changed the mechanism for the thresh for the like throttling of the beam consumption from the faucet using time. So you will only be able to withdraw a certain amount over some period of time. So hopefully this will kind of slow down the robbing, even though it's small amounts. Like the basic use for faucet is to just provide a small amount of tokens or assets to play with for somebody who is new to the ecosystem. You download the wallet, you don't have any beam, so instead of immediately going to, I don't know, an exchange and buying some or to any other means, you will just should be able to receive a small amount. However, since this faucet is decentralized and it's a contract on chain, there is no way to, do any kind of protection against someone creating a lot of wallets. So we kind of tried to tackle that in this new feature, in this new version of the faucet. So it's live. The asset minter is also live, which means that anyone can create an asset using a smart contract, and it will have a limited supply capped by the number that you provide when you mint the asset, and it will be enforced by smart contract. Unlike previous assets that were mostly created using the wallet API, and they were not limited in number, and the owner could always mint more or burn the assets that they had. This way, using the asset minter, you will always be able to prove that the total issued amount is limited and capped. So that's also a great app to have on mainnet. There is currently a small bug with it that has to do with the wallet. We need to fix it. When you will try to mint the asset and then immediately withdraw it into your wallet, there is a high possibility that the wallet will crash. And it's actually an old mechanism that kind of protects, like, is supposed to protect from spending the assets that were just minted. But it's not working correctly in this specific case, and we will fix that. So if you just minted a new asset using the asset minter and just wait for a few, I don't know, maybe uh, an hour or so, and then you will be able to also withdraw it. But once again, we're working on that. It's a small issue to fix. We're also going to talk about the upcoming releases of the web wallet, and a lot. The mobile wallet is also in the works, but the web wallet is closer, I think. And also, we have a lot of additional developments that we plan to use the web wallet with, and I will talk about that as well. So yeah, quite a lot of things. Um, yeah, that's that's about it.
A very big week, and as you said, like a very big launch with the 7.3 wallet, and also Nefret coming out today. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so let's get started in an organized fashion. Let's start with the 7.3. One of the things that really changed, and it's an important change, and it's not still kind of fully supported in a way. So we do need to make some additional work to make it even better. Is how the addresses work internally because of the change that we introduced with the hardware wallet. So as you know, we have SBBS, which is the mechanism for sending encrypted messages between wallets, and it is used also for creating transactions. So when you are sending somebody an address, in order to be able to, receive funds from them, you also provide this SBBS component. And when we added the hardware wallet support, we introduced another component, which is like an additional signature, which can be verified on the hardware wallet, right? So SBBS is kind of more a means of, transportation, delivering messages between wallets, but that additional signature that we have initially called Wallet ID, and now it is called endpoint, I think, in some UI components. This is actually the additional signature that is both verified and also shown in the UI. And it's like, I don't know, the address of the recipient and the envelope, right? So SBBS is more like an envelope or an address, like the endpoint is the actual signature on the letter or something like that, right? So it's kind of the uh, transport and the essence of the transaction signed by two different keys. So if you encounter this term endpoint, this is what it means. It just means that this is the actual signature that you will verify on your hardware wallet screen. And the SBBS is more like a transient, means of communication between wallets. It's less important, and it does not affect the verification of the actual signature on the hardware device. One of the things that we need to do, in addition to the changes that we have already implemented for this support, we need to kind of fix the address book. As you know, the address book was always kind of there in the wallet, but it was rarely used because when we were creating a new SBBS address for every transaction, and we didn't have this endpoint feature, it was basically useless, right? There was just too many entries without any meaning in the address book. But now that we do have this separation between the signature and the envelope that kind of sends it, we can implement a much better support. So this is one of the things that we are going to work on for the next version of the desktop wallet.
Sounds good. One of the questions that's coming up a little bit in the community chat at the moment: can you use the endpoint as you would an SBBS address?
Not exactly. So okay. So let's try to explain it like better. Okay. So in most cryptocurrencies, let's say Bitcoin, you have an address, right? And the address is two things. First of all, it's like how you send coins to someone. You just send to this address, and it's also the same mechanism that allows the new owner, like once the coins are received by that address, to verify and to prove that the ownership of those coins, right? So it's kind of two things in one term. A great term, address, very simple, very intuitive.
Yeah.
In Beam, these two functions are separated. You have one signature to sign, basically to kind of both authorize the transaction and also to prove that that it belongs to you. And also, you have the mechanism that actually connects to wallets and delivers this information from one wallet to another. And this is the SBBS. So we have two separate things to do the same kind of the same operation. So the SBBS was not renamed to endpoint. It's still there. The endpoint is just this additional signature that is provided by the wallet to perform the transaction. So when you are looking, for example, on the hardware wallet you received, or like you're sending to someone the address and you received from somebody the transaction, what you're going to see on the screen is this endpoint. This is the important part of the signature, the one that you verify on the hardware device. The SBBS remains just like this envelope around it, just so your transaction could be delivered to another wallet through our SBBS system, which is just an encrypted kind of messaging board inside our nodes. So there is a question about where to find the SBBS address, because as you know, it's needed for most centralized exchanges. They do not support necessarily the verification for our new signature scheme. So it should be in transaction details. I'm going to create over the weekend, I have some plans to create some tutorials on the subject, like both text and video, and we will definitely emphasize these points, like where to find this information. But in the transaction details, you should be able to see the SBBS address. Like when you go to the address details.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But it's two completely different things, the SBBS and the endpoint. And just like the endpoint is wrapped in the SBBS and then delivered.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. As I said, there are some improvements that need to be made in this regard. It was kind of like it's an important change, and it's like maybe not supported equally well everywhere in the wallet. But yeah, we will need to work on that, and I hope eventually it will be better. By the way, I mentioned this in the community channel today. When you are asking questions about specific things, it's like very useful to tag them using some kind of a tag. I don't know, for example, I don't know, wallet, if it's a question about the wallet, or if it's like more specific questions about the DEX or Nifrit or any other kind of application. Because there is a lot of chatter in the community, which is great. There's a lot of great discussions and a lot of questions. And when I wake up in the morning, or like other people from the team, that when they look at the community channel, it's sometimes very difficult for them to filter through all of that. And once we have these tags, then it will be much easier to find specific questions. So please do so, and yeah, it will help.
Absolutely. It makes it easier to not lose track of any of the bugs or improvement suggestions and this kind of thing. As I understand, the message is also pinned in the Telegram community chat as well.
Yeah, I pinned it. I pinned it for a while just to kind of notify everyone. Yeah, so as you know, there are different people responsible for different aspects of the like Beam ecosystem, different applications, different features. So everyone can be easily able to find questions that are related to them. We also have quite a few channels, and we have the developer support and the regular support, and like some other channels, and it's much easier to find everything that belongs to a specific topic using those tags, and yeah, it's a useful feature to have. Okay, so I expect there will be a lot of like a lot more questions about all that, because actually the 7.3 is a big release. It doesn't like look like it in terms of like there are not too many external changes or like crazy kind of UI changes that like are immediately visible. But in terms of the internal functionality, there are a lot of new things there. So yeah, I expect that will be a lot of questions, and we hope to answer most of them. In any case, if you can't get an answer or you run into any problems, the first place to go is obviously the Beam support Telegram channel. And then if you don't get any help there, which is rare, you can just contact me directly as usual, and I will try to help. So never feel that you don't have anywhere to go. We're always here.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's move on and talk about Nifrit. So first of all, Nifrit, as you know, is a collateralized confidential stable coin built on top of Beam. And it's quite a complicated and complex application, right? So in terms of the, let's say, method of operation, how it works, the most kind of close resemblance is to Liquidity. But not too many people know about Liquidity, unfortunately, but it's a great stable coin on Ethereum. And I would like to do two things. First of all, kind of explain now that Nifrit is finally live, provide a small like overview of how it works, but not like in depth, but rather like what's the basic principles and important things that Nifrit is doing, like how it is different from Liquidity, how it's different from MakerDAO DAI, which is I think one of the most popular and well-known stable coins that use collateralized mechanism CDPs. And also, I would like to talk about some specific features of Nifrit. As I said, it's a complicated application, and my recommendation, as usual for everyone, is to study it carefully, not to commit immediately too much funds to it, play with it, see how it works. If you don't want to commit any funds, you can always test it on the DAppNet. That's why we have the DAppNet. So you can, play with any application for free. If you have the ability and the time to read the Nifrit white paper, it's even better because it has a lot of like important information. But let's start with the basics. So first of all of these Nifrit, DAI, and also like Liquidity, they have the same idea of using over collateralized debt positions to mint stable coins. What it means is that you lock some amount of collateral, which is larger than 100%. Like in DAI, I think it's like 300%. In Liquity and Nifriti, it's like 110%. It means that the value of the collateral at all times is greater than the minted position in stable coins. This is how the value of this stable is maintained. When the price of the collateral, whatever it may be, on Beam currently in Nifriti, it's obviously Beam, when it changes its price, if it moves up, then great, your collateralization ratio increases and you're all good. However, if it moves down, it means that there is a risk that the Nifrit will be under collateralized, and that cannot happen. So what happens in this situation is that your position can be liquidated. When the price of, let's say, Beam as a collateral moves down, and it falls under the threshold of 110%, the position can be liquidated. The liquidation is actually part of the application. So when you open the Nifrit screen, one of the things that you will see there is to liquidate positions. And whoever liquidates position gets a 10 Nifrit or 10 US dollars, basically, because Nifrit is tied to dollar, bonus immediately. And this 10 Nifrit is taken from the initial collateral kind of that was used to create this position. The position is called the trove. In both Nifrit and Liquity, it's called the trove. You can only have one trove, but obviously you can change the amount of collateral there. So at each time on the screen, you see your position, how much ICR, which is the collateralization ratio that it has. It obviously has to be more than 110%, but the more collateralization ratio you have, the more your position is protected from liquidation. Now, when you go to liquidation, you see the weakest positions first. Like, for example, when I open the screen right now, I see that the weakest position that we currently have in Nifrit is at 152%, which is great, which is much more than the minimum. But once it falls down, it can be liquidated, and whoever liquidates this position gets this price, right? The 10 Nifrit, which is the $10, which is quite a lot of money, for liquidating that position and making the ecosystem stronger. So when you have a situation when your position falls under like certain amount of collateral, you can have two options. You can either close this position by basically returning back the Nifrit that you borrowed, or you can add more collateral. In any case, you should be kind of mindful to that. If you have a trove open in Nifrit, you should always know approximately how much is your ICR, and it's easy to see on the main screen in order not to get liquidated. One thing that is important to emphasize, and this is what differs, like one of the key differences between, let's say, Nifrit and Liquity, is the ability of direct redemption. Direct redemption means that you can basically redeem your Nifrit at face value, right? So like you have a Nifrit, you can come and say, okay, listen, this is my Nifrit, please sell me the collateral, which is Beam, at the current market rate. And the redemption part of the application will start working in about 2 weeks. This is kind of the grace period in order to allow the system to stabilize and to have enough total value locked and enough collateral in the system. And after 2 weeks, the redemptions will be possible. It's part of the protocol. It's also described in the white paper. So if you go to the screen and it doesn't work, that's why. For the first 2 weeks, this feature is disabled to allow the system to kind of gain traction before the redemption starts. Now, the last part which I want to emphasize is the stability pool. The stability pool, it has the purpose of allowing people to lock Nifrit, to lock the stable, which can be used to basically rescue the troves that fall under the lowest kind of threshold of collateralization ratio. In case there is a risk of like kind of systemic falling under the CR or something like that, so it's kind of used only in very kind of dire circumstances. But people who lock their Nifrit there, they get rewarded with BMax. And this is exactly the part that was voted upon. I'm sorry, in the Epoch 18, I think it was. And this is how the allocation of the BMax that was kind of dedicated to Nifrit by the DAO is going to be used, right? So this BMax that we have voted on will be deposited in the Nifrit contract, and they will be used to reward those who provide liquidity to the stability pool. So right now, this BMax was not deposited in the contract yet, even though we did allocate it, like we did vote on it. And the reason is because we want, first of all, to make sure that the application works correctly before we commit those funds. So if you encounter any issues or any problems with Nifrit, use it, and you see any problems either in the logic or in the UI, whatever, in the coming days, please let us know. And we will tweet about it, and we will make sure that everything works correctly before the DAO commits any BMax to the stability pool rewards.
Nice. And like a question on this and the stability pool and that, like, why is the BMX rewards being used, excuse me, to encourage people to join the stability pool?
So when you're joining the stability pool, what you're doing is basically you are locking your Nifrit and you make it available for the stabilization of the system in kind of extreme circumstances. And obviously, like, why would you do that? It's your Nifrit, you just minted it or you just bought it. So why would you do that? What's the incentive? And this is exactly the incentive. So the reason that we use BMax is because we as a DAO are interested in the success of this application, since it's the stable coin on Beam. It has like a lot of potential. It also generates profits for the DAO in transaction fees. So when you are doing operations inside the fees go to the DAO. And in return, the DAO provides this reward for the stability pool. So it's kind of mutually beneficial relationship between the application and the DAO, because the application is obviously interested in long-term stability and success, and the DAO is interested in the profit. So this is kind of the combination of these two factors.
Absolutely. And what you mentioned earlier about like going to the liquidation page and being able to liquidate other people's positions, does this mean that you have to, like, if you're liquidating it, do you have to cover the Nifrit that is owed on the position and in return get the beam? Or does this, or does it come from the...
that's how liquidation works. And no, one second. It's not you that cover. You just hit. You just hit the liquidation, and okay.
It comes from the stability pool, right? Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So the point is, the point is like that. First of all, as I said, it's a complicated application, and we need to read the manual carefully in this case, because there are several modes. There are two modes. One is called the recovery mode and the regular mode, and they behave differently, right? And it has to do with the kind of total situation across all throws. But the point here is that there are different mechanisms. Let's say in the MakerDAO DAI, it's very simple because there is an auction. Like, not simple, but it's like very simple to understand because there is an auction, and whenever position is being liquidated, there is an auction, and whoever proposes the best price to liquidate this position wins and gets this benefit, because there is a penalty involved in the collateral. In Liquidity, there is no auction. And the position is basically kind of liquidated by the system. So it's kind of spread across the other positions that are over collateralized. The point is that, first of all, whoever triggers the liquidation gets the reward, because we are interested in liquidating weak positions as quickly as possible, right? So what it means is that the liquidation is very profitable operation for the liquidator, right? You just click and you get 10 Nifrit. Obviously, right now we have a UI for that, but if it gets traction, obviously there will be automated tools, bots, whatever that will do that using the API, and they will react much faster to these situations. But it's healthy to get rid of weak trolls as quickly as possible.
Make otherwise, like you get into situations where the trove can't be liquidated with enough
Yeah,
to cover the loan and this kind of stuff. So that incentive.
yeah. I think there's something with your microphone, so because for a second I couldn't. Oh,
It could. Is it better now? Okay,
yeah,
I
yeah.
did the odd thing where I covered the microphone with my appendix. Sorry.
Yeah. So one of the things that like obviously there is a lot of kind of official information about how Nifrit works, but I will also try to um, cover these things in the video tutorial that I will prepare because yeah, there are a lot of non-trivial details there. Like it's as I said, it's complicated. Um, yeah, but like play with it, ask questions, and we will figure it out eventually.
One of the questions that came up a couple of times in the past and more recently today, has there in your communications with the Nifrit team, have they spoken about adding other collateral such as Bitcoin or Ethereum, and what are your thoughts on additional collateral, whether it be wrapped assets or that kind of thing?
Yeah, there was a great conversation in the community channel about this earlier today. So first of all, two things. In terms of the collateral types, it's important, I think, to have those collateral assets, the assets that are used for collateral, to be as decentralized as possible. For example, I kind of strongly, I would say, not opposed because I don't have a say in it, but I was very kind of suspicious when DAI started using a lot of USDC as collateral. Um, and I don't think in general using kind of centralized stables or other centralized assets as a collateral for a decentralized stable coin is a good idea. So it obviously, I think it should be volatile decentralized assets. And on Beam currently, the only asset that can be objectively used for this purpose is Beam because Beam is the only asset that has market price. In the future, obviously, we have more options, and these options are either new assets that have a price, for example, BMX, theoretically, once it has a price through, I don't know, DEX, for example, or it can be breached assets. Now, the breached assets, right now, we only breach from Ethereum, so it can be Ethereum, it can be wrapped Bitcoin, it can be DAI or USDT, and in the future, there can be more assets. The problem with the breach right now, and with most breaches, is that they are usually too centralized for my taste, and they are very often hacked, and it's very, I would say, increases the risk in many regards. For example, it wasn't a hack, but when a real bank collapsed in the real world, and it held like $3 billion of worth of USDC, which was used also as a collateral for DAI. Both USDC and DAI kind of went off their peg, and it's a very scary situation that no stablecoin project wants to be in. So yes, theoretically, it's possible in the future. I don't know if Nifty team has any plans for that. But I also think that in terms of like us as a DAO, as a community, uh, yeah, like the liquidity will be better. But I think we have a lot of things to do in terms of bringing more liquidity and doing marketing and bringing more traction to Beam in general and Nifrit in particular before we start thinking about that. Because any additional collateral type, especially if it is breached. It increases the risk overall. So I don't know if we should rush to that right
Absolutely.
now.
And like I said, BTC, but if my understanding is correct, it wouldn't be able to be like bridged BTC from the Bitcoin network. It would need to be WBTC, which has been, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is like a centralized issuer and this kind of stuff that issues that.
Yeah, since Bitcoin does not have smart contracts, in sufficient form to allow decentralized bridges, it's obviously going to be some sort of a centralized bridge. It can be kind of, because WBTC is also a bridge of sorts. There is an organization that holds Bitcoin and then needs
Yeah.
WBTC. So it's like a centralized bridge, in fact. So when you bridge WBTC to Beam, you have two bridges to worry about. You have the original WBTC and whatever can happen to that, and you also see a bridge from the wrapped Bitcoin on Ethereum to Beam wrapped asset. So it's kind of two bridges. So the more bridges there are, obviously the risk
Yeah.
is greater. Theoretically, it would be great if there was a amazingly stable, honest, and uh, you know uh, respectable organization that would hold some Bitcoin and then mint directly on Beam. That would be amazing. But since there is no such organization for now, uh, that's the situation we're in.
Makes sense. I was going to suggest I was going to make a joke about Do Kwon and Luna Classic.
Oh man.
I don't know if they still have their Bitcoin though. Probably not.
Yeah, it's probably a good topic for another time because we do have just too many things to cover today. But every time, like look at these, stories about what happened in all of these, like Terra and FTX and all that, like I'm amazed at the level of incompetence that uh,
It's
forget it
crazy.
next time.
One of the things that I do want to emphasize is like how well in like all of the last year and more than a year of craziness, how well like LUSD, the liquidity on Ethereum chain held up in comparison to many companies and exchanges and this kind of stuff. Yeah,
And
and
banks
banks, yeah.
for that reason.
So I think like what the Nefri team has based the stablecoin for Beam off of is a very solid choice.
Yeah, I totally agree. So first of all, when all of this Luna Terra story started, there was kind of an immediate problem because they all used this term of algorithmic
Yeah,
stablecoin back in the day. And turned out that there are different kinds of algorithmic stablecoins. There are those that are based on collateralized positions like DAI, which also behaved greatly during the most difficult of times. Liquidity, LUSD also behaved like very well. And also there are kind of Lunaterra style self-minting mechanisms which work much worse, let's say kindly. And then we started to change our language and no longer say like algorithmic versus USD based, and we started to distinguish between different kinds of algorithmic stablecoins, and then we kind of talk about collateralized and over collateralized stablecoins. So yeah, I agree, and indeed those mechanisms, they are much more resilient, much better suited for both like sharp upward and downward trading markets. I agree. It's the best choice. Like in my opinion, it's the best. It's the best choice that could have been made for Nifrit, and I'm really happy for it. But once again, let's be careful. New application, new ecosystem on Beam. Uh, I would rather build slowly and surely than rush into any kind of adventures because yeah, like I'm just advertising caution in any case, and caution, control, and understanding what's happening. it's kind of everything is new, and we need to figure out how things work before we just go crazy with it.
Exactly. Like as with any like new product or software or whatever, especially when like you're putting money or Beam or Bitcoin or Ethereum, always like be fairly careful and know what you're getting into and the risks and this kind of stuff. Better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. 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 We're all optimistic, we're all hopeful, but we also need to be responsible and careful. And I think that's the way the crypto should work, and not like, oh, there is a new contract somewhere, let's put all our money in it.
Yeah, at least wait for the bull market to shift focus a little bit.
Yeah, at least wait for the creator of that contract to
Yeah.
wake up, like it wasn't like
One of the
back in
other
the day.
things that I wanted to ask about with the 7.3 release, the also came with it the messenger. Can you touch
Yeah.
on like what the messenger currently is and like the alpha version and this kind of thing, and what is the next steps that you see for Beam Messenger?
Yeah. So currently the messenger is something between proof of concept and like very, very, very early alpha. What it does is relatively simple in terms of the uh, technology behind it. It uses the existing mechanism of the same old good SBBS. And instead of, like, for example, SBBS is used for asset swaps. Like when you create a new swap, the message is broadcasted
Yeah.
using SBBS. But here, what you can do is you can send an SBBS message to a specific address, right? To a specific SBBS address. So that's kind of point to point, one-to-one messenger. You can talk with one specific person, the person that you already know, because you have to get the address from another messenger. But it is encrypted. It is encrypted. It is also transient. So these messages, they expire like in the system. They are not stored anywhere. They use the same existing SBBS mechanism in which, as you know, I think after 24 hours, those messages are discarded. So this is the first version. And the second version, which we will start working on now, will do two things. First of all, it will allow group chats, because after all, that's what we all want, right? We want to be able to chat in groups, small groups, large groups, whatever. It's not really interesting to just, send messages to one person. Sometimes it is, but definitely less useful than, having uh, having an ability to chat in groups. The other thing that's important is, and it's something that is actually larger than just a messenger, it's in general a very important thing that we need to do, is a better integration between the wallet and the applications. For example, Bans. Bans is a great application, and it's very easy to send somebody funds because, you have their kind of Bans name, and then you just go to, I don't know, beamcto.beam and you send them funds. But in order to do so today, you need to go to the application screen, you need to open the Bans application, and only then you can actually access it. You cannot access it from your regular send screen because the send screen is inside the wallet and Bans is a dApp. And we do have a very strict separation between these two, and for a good reason. Because, decentralized applications are naturally a little bit less trusted. So we don't want to directly expose them to all of the wallet APIs, to allow them to know our balances, to allow them to know, control our funds, obviously, and other things. However, in many cases, there is a good reason to integrate them better. For example, uh, when you are able to open a, let's say, messenger, and then just click somebody's buns and find their, I don't know, address or whatever the ways to communicate with them, it's much easier than doing it in other ways. Also, for DEX, for example, when you open the DEX screen and you want the DEX application to know which assets you're holding and then only show you the relevant pools that you can trade in, it needs to somehow communicate maybe not the exact amounts, but at least which types of assets you're holding, right? To show you that. But that's also like information that you provide. So all of these mechanisms for better integration between the dApps and the wallet, they are something that we are going to discuss going forward, both internally and externally, like in all possible ways, and see if we can devise a mechanism that is both safe in terms of like control, because the most important thing is that you always know exactly what information you are exposing and to which dApp, and also eventually improve the usability of these combinations of different applications and the wallet. So yeah, that's a very big topic that is also relevant both to the messenger, to the DEX, and many other applications. Uh, Obviously to the Bounce application because it's very nice and it's very useful, and we do want to integrate with it. Yeah, so it's a lot of work in this department.
Absolutely. Like I've had obviously I've sent many like transactions on Beam and Ethereum and Bitcoin and this kind of stuff, and I do have like I do have a band's address and I have an ENS and this kind of stuff, but strangely I've never sent like anything to one of those addresses, and I guess it goes back to what you said about like being a little bit cautious and not trusting it so much. I don't know why, but I always send it to the standard address.
Yeah, because one of the most kind of important things in software design in general is the affordability, like how easy it is to get to some function. And in many cases, even the difference between, let's say, one click and two clicks can make a huge difference in the conversion or like the usage of a specific
Absolutely.
functionality. Uh, yeah, since Beam was initially designed, this is a kind of evolutionary, process of adding features to an existing functionality. And Beam was originally designed for simple transactions, and all of the additional mechanisms like the smart contracts and the applications that came later, the process of the design kind of guided it through making them simplest or like oldest functions more available because they are on the top screen. And then all of the additional functionality was added later, so it's a little bit kind of more in depth of the wallet and is less covered. And even though we did redesign a lot of things along the way, it's still, you can still see this, right? When you click on, even in the simplest example, like when you click on receive and you see the drop down of the different assets that you can, receive. You see that it was added later, right? It's a little bit kind of different from the very sleek initial design because naturally that's the process. So there are two ways to kind of deal with that situation in general, not just in Beam. One is at some point when there is enough new functionality and you see that you cannot squeeze, anymore, or if there is a logical stopping point, like let's say, okay, now we have everything that we need, and now we can, take and redesign the entire wallet uh, so that the new functionality is much better integrated with the old one. So that's one of the approaches. The other approach is to just try to separate it, and that's what we've been doing so far. Logically separate it into different kind of screens, and it was working for us. We took all of the applications, we put it in a separate screen called the dApp Store, and there we have provided all of the functionality that was related to the dApps, and all of the kind of older or classic functionality was still remaining in the wallet section. But today, I think we're reaching this point where we can no longer do that for too much time because we see that both the functions become more integrated, more complex, and also the existing design is already kind of at its edge of being able to squeeze new things. I think one of the most kind of illustrative way to see that when you open the Beam wallet on a laptop screen, the left pane with all of the features is full, right? You cannot squeeze anything. So There used to be just one icon there, the wallet, but now we have the wallet and the atomic swaps and the asset swaps and the dApp store and the DAO and the voting and the bridges and the messenger, right? So it just kind of gets very crowded.
This is true. I can see, although, a tiny space between the messenger and the address book.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
like it's amazing.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
not
amazing how many more
uh,
there are already on the like left-hand panel now than obviously when we launched.
absolutely. Now, this brings me to another topic, and it's actually a great segue because it kind of answers several questions. The web wallet. Listen, the web wallet is going to be amazing for two reasons. First of all, yes, we're going to release the new version soon. We have completely rebuilt it almost from scratch because the Google changed the way that extensions work with the features that we needed for this wallet to operate. And one of the differences or the key differences now is that it has to open, even if you install it as an extension, let's say for Chrome, it has to open as a full page. It can no longer appear from this small kind of dialog that opens when you click on the icon in the top right corner. It has to be open as a full page. That's the limitation that Google provided. It's not us. However, it does give us a lot of new interesting opportunities to make this UI larger. So for now, in the version that is going to be released, I hope really soon, we are kind of testing it and finishing the last bugs, and we are also upgrading it to the 7.3 library. Uh, you will see that what we've done, we've basically taken the old UI, we made it a little bit wider, and we also changed the confidential assets panes to kind of reflect the better information and make it more, similar to the desktop wallet. But that's just the beginning. So we are going to both improve the existing features of the wallet and also web wallet because it's easier to implement in many ways because the web technologies that are used are kind of more lightweight. The changes are a little bit easier. Um, we are going to experiment a lot with the web wallet to try to address many of those UI issues and UX issues that we eventually also want in the desktop wallet. Until this point, the desktop wallet was the leader, like the flagman, and they had the most functionality. But I think now, in terms of the new things that we need, we can do a lot more and a lot kind of quicker changes on the web wallet. So that's kind of how I envision it. Another important thing that we're going to do, we're going to take our existing dApp store and make it available as a web page. So you will go to, let's say, dapps.beam.mw. You will see the dApp store applications, and then you will just connect the web wallet and immediately start using dApps. Once again, before we had all of these dApps that we have now, and before the Beam DeFi ecosystem was existing, most of the things or most of the operations were actually involving transactions in the wallet. But today, I believe that this is changing, and most people are going to use mostly dApps for most of their activity in Beam. And this means that we can shift the focus from just the transactions to more kind of complicated interactions with the dApps. And I think the web wallet and the web dApp store will provide a great testing ground and a great kind of lab to innovate in and to test our assumptions, to test our UI and other integrations because it's much easier uh, to work with in terms of like development time and also the deployment is easier. So that's the plan going forward, and I think it will provide a lot of interesting features, improvements, and opportunities. So that's the next big thing that we're currently working on and going to deliver soon on Beam.
This is cool and a very like good for what you mentioned earlier about like those extra steps kind of being a pushback against like getting people to join in or use something and this kind of thing. And I think it was the last space we mentioned about like many of the dApps you cannot see any information or see what's going on unless you like have the wallet or this kind of thing, which is currently the case for Beam. and the like DApp website itself would be really useful for pointing people that are new to Beam towards and seeing what we've got and what dApps are there and what's on offer kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. So first of all, we have discussed it last time indeed when we talked about marketing. The ability to quickly engage with new users is essential. People have very little time and patience these days, so you do need to provide them with the quickest possible way to get started with the ecosystem. And that's why when you get to the website and you immediately see like live information about what's happening, and you can with one click get create a seed and get something from the faucet, that will motivate you to then install the web wallet and maybe the desktop wallet. And by the way, uh, after not just after, but probably before, but there is a lot of activity in the community uh, around the marketing and around the website redesign. And I would like especially, give a big shout out to Mr. Magic Potatoes. I think that's the handle, who is working on a new website, and he will present it soon. Uh, I think when it's ready. I already saw it. There are some links here and there, but it looks amazing. And I think one of the greatest features of his idea is that the website can be hosted on the IPFS, so it will be much more resilient to just residing on a centralized server. Um, all of the dApps will also be moved to IPFS eventually. That's the plan. So we don't want, at least as a backup, right? So, but we don't want to only rely on centralized servers ever. Um, yeah, great work. And in general, the activity in the community is absolutely amazing. Uh, a lot of discussions, questions, criticisms. It's great. Like I never been happier about it.
Absolutely, and like want to back you up and say like very cool to see like the I'm laughing because I find so many of the community members' names very difficult to remember and say. The Magic Potatoes, huge effort, and everyone in that group actually has been coming up with some great ideas and suggestions and this kind of thing, and I think that this is very like positive, not just in the short term, but even more so in like the long term for Beam and the ecosystem and this kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, it's amazing, and keep it up. It's really helping. It's really great. I mean, yeah, it's working. uh, by the way, speaking of the community, there are several questions. I don't know how many of them we will be able to answer as of now because we're running out of time. But there was one question that I would like to address, and it was about Lelantus Spark. Lelantus Spark is a new development, a new paper that was published by the same great person who invented Lelantus protocol. His name is Aram Zhivanian, and it's an improvement on the existing Lelantus. Firo is going to use it at some point, and the question was whether we can upgrade Lelantus Mimblewimble to Lelantus Spark Mimblewimble. So let me say this. First of all, when we spoke last with Aram, he was in Tel Aviv for a conference, and we met with him. He mentioned about this development, and I think from what I understood from him back then, one of the big advantages is the increased anonymity set even further. So right now we have 64K anonymity set, which is already a lot, but the Lelantus Spark is supposed to be even better in this regard. However, when I read or like tried to review the paper today, when I heard about it and I kind of tried to understand what else it provides, uh, like I think there might be additional benefits, but I'm not 100% sure about exactly like what they are. So I don't want to just talk nonsense. What we've done is I sent it to Vladi. Vladi is reading it, and since he's the one who implemented Lelantos on Beam in the first place, I think he will make much better sense of it than I ever will. And the answer to this question is Most likely, yes. It will definitely require hard fork because it's an upgrade to a major protocol in Beam. We will see exactly what the benefits are. The difference between Firo and Beam in this regard, I think, is that they only use Lelantus. We use Lelantus Wimble, and I think that maybe this upgrade provides kind of a more value for them at this point. Like if it's just an anonymity set, we will need to see whether it makes sense and how difficult it is. But if there are any additional benefits in terms of like usability or like new transaction types that will be supported, then we will provide more information about it and definitely consider upgrading to it in the future if it's possible. But,
Makes
yeah.
perfect sense, and like agree with what you mentioned about like if it's only sort of focused on anonymity set, then maybe it's even something to like discuss in the forum and go from there as to whether it's worth it or the focus and resources are better put onto something else. Which is sure an interesting discussion.
By the way, you know what? I just realized that I forgot. There's so many features right now in Beam. I'm getting lost myself. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, we implemented that as well. In the new faucet, you can donate any asset you want. Like it's not just for Beam.
So this is cool. I think that Max and Flaxel sent some. I can't remember which. I just saw it in the chat.
Tico,
yeah. I think he sent some of this to the faucet, and I didn't.
Yeah, I see it. Like, yeah, we have Tico in the faucet. We have Nifrit in the faucet.
Okay, yeah. Wicked.
Yeah, so it's really cool. You can get yeah, you can get you can donate and you can get kind of any. I think somebody requested. Like, I think it was. I think it was Max and Faxel maybe who requested or asked whether there is a possibility to deploy a separate faucet for like Tico, but whatever. But you don't need to right now, so you can use the same faucet for all. Yeah, and somebody just claimed the free.
Wasn't me. I was. Yeah. I opened it and saw it, and then I saw a key, and I thought, "What's key?" And got distracted. I have one last question, I guess, before like we wrap up. With Nifrit having launched to mainnet today, do you have any rough estimate as to when the DEX will launch to mainnet?
Yeah. So first of all, the updated version of the accumulator was launched today on DAppNet. And it's the version that we have implemented and added all kinds of fixes and improvements following the previous testing ground that we have had for the previous version of the accumulator. So please go to the DAppNet and take a look at the new accumulator. And I didn't get to test it properly yet. It was just deployed earlier today. And once we finish testing the new version of the accumulator and we see that it works as expected, we will launch immediately. Like my hopes that it will happen, I don't know, Sunday or Monday, like the close, like in the next 2 days, right? Because both like the developer who worked on it goes on short vacation, so I would like to to deploy it before he goes to the vacation, so we can still fix any issues that might arise. In terms of the UI, it's not the final version. The accumulator app has 2 stages. It has the accumulation stage when you just deposit the Beam and BeamX pair. And then after the DEX launches, it transforms itself into the staking app. So we are currently focused on the first stage to make sure that it works. And since this stage will only happen once, we don't invest too much into make it super perfect in terms of the design. So yeah, like if it works in terms of the functionality, we will launch it as soon as possible. And what it means that it will start the accumulation phase, which will last for 2 weeks, and once it's complete, we will launch the DEX. Everything is ready. We're now in the procedural stage. Yeah, so that's it, and it means that by the end of this month, we're live with the DEX, and I think it will be super great step in terms of the Beam DeFi ecosystem being ready for prime time.
Absolutely, like going to be a huge addition to Beam. I would say, like earlier,
Yeah.
you mentioned that a stable coin is like one of the most. I'd even go so far as saying like the most, and not only like a stable coin, but the idea of having like other assets on top of the same blockchain that have like a value in a stable coin, or like one that's backed by a debt position, and this kind of stuff is definitely has value. And I would say like after the stable coin, the DEX is up there with the most like pertinent applications for any decentralized system.
Totally. And just before we wrap up, I need to say that we are going to have all of the important building blocks, but it doesn't mean we still have so much work ahead of us. Just to give one example, now that we have tons of assets, one of the big problems is how to filter them correctly, how to avoid buying, I don't know, fake BMax or fake BFRIT or whatever, like assets that are not use the same name but don't have the same ID. So that and how I adapt my wallet to only show the assets that I use the most or assets that kind of the most prominent. All of these questions are still open, and we are both actively working on ideas, but also accept any suggestions, proposals, and thoughts from the community. And it's very, very helpful. These discussions, they guide us, they provide a ton of feedback. So yeah, a lot of work still ahead of us, and I'm really eager, like really waiting for these next steps. Now that we do have finally like all of these building blocks either already released or on the way. Something that I personally been waiting for a long time, and now it's really happening. And it just, it's definitely just the beginning, opens up a lot of new possibilities. Crazy exciting times. And yeah, thank you very much all for your support and being with us, and keep it up. Keep providing your thoughts, and it's going to be amazing going forward. The summer will be hot.
Absolutely. So much been done, and so much like coming up on the very like short-term horizon, and then even more like possibilities in the future as well. And I think that these foundations these applications lay the foundation for some incredible like exciting times for the Beam ecosystem.
Absolutely, totally.
Wicked, Alex, as always, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks everyone for being here. And we'll see you next week. And yeah, we will talk a lot in between in many, many channels.
Absolutely. Take care and see you soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.